Good, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel Essex. This is Podcast for Liberty. And I do hope our good God sees that you are healthy and happy. And we're still mourning the death of Rush Limbaugh, but it's getting better. It's hurting less. Um, all right, last week, as you remember, we talked about what Rush Limbaugh meant to me. And the thing is thinking about it and listening to the conversations that everybody else has been having. Uh, it's occurred to me that a lot of people may be misinformed as to what happened before Rush came along. Um, that could be. I do know what I remember. At the time I was a teenager or earlier. So I figure what we'll do is we'll talk about what I remember about talk radio, going back to about the time I was about 8 years old. That was 1970, I believe. That'd be 1970. That's when I first listened to talk radio show, and I was hooked ever since. Okay. Now, before we get too much further, what I would like to do is let y'all know and let y'all know about the Society for Liberty and Prosperity. Podcast for Liberty is brought to you by the Society of Liberty and Prosperity. And my is being very slow. The Society for Liberty and Prosperity for the Constitution of the United States of America. We're a national organization which has been started as a result of current threats to our liberty. We sell our liberty and prosperity and devote our time, effort, fortune, and lives promoting the cause of freedom and the preservation of our liberty. We are dedicated to the preservation of the Union, our language, and our culture. We are fed up with the elitists currently in government. We stand for the ideals of limited government, limited taxation, and greater liberty. For evil to win, the good only need do nothing. I urge you to support and join the Society for Liberty and Prosperity today so we can again regain our liberty and our prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, those words are very heartfelt. And as I was writing them, there was a lot of emotion involved. Please, I can't urge you enough. Go to http www.societylp.net. Check it out. Join if you will. Join the society. Advertising is now available on the Podcast for Liberty. For more information, go to our website for more information. I would love to have a couple of sponsors. I would love to get a little something, at least enough to pay the bills. All right, now back to our show. Rush Limbaugh, talk radio, and when I was growing up, because I remember when Rush first started 30 years ago. Hard to believe it's been that long. Doesn't seem like it's been that long. It seems like yesterday. But Rush was always confident. always sure of himself. Even when he was getting the ire of the Democrats and they were getting at him and they were attacking him relentlessly, he never did let it get to him. In fact, he laughed it off. He acted like, "Is that all you got?" You know, I don't think they heard him one bit. They tried and failed time and again. Perhaps that's a lesson for all of us. Maybe we should just buck up and be confident in who and what we are, and just not let them get to us, and let them give us our worst, and just let it bounce off us, and watch as they make fools of themselves, trying more and more and harder to try and destroy us, which they cannot do. All right. Now, when I was 8 years old, in my social studies class, teacher had given everybody a project. And the project was to take your AM radio and track as many radio stations as you can. You can listen anytime, day or night, scan the dial, write down the call letters of whatever station you found, and where you believe it came from. We learned a lot in that class. She had us do that assignment every day for about 3 months. And then at the end of the 3 months, we all had lists of call letters. And some of us actually found out where some of these stations were from. And now I had about 40 or 50 different radio stations that I heard. I wrote down the frequencies, the ones that I could. I wrote down the call letters. And I think there were like 2 or 3 that I actually found out where they came from. But the ones that I found out where they came from were local, nearby, same city, Buffalo. But that's okay. I did win with my 36 stations. I did win the prize. I found more radio stations than anybody else had. Now, part of that was because I waited until the evening time, the nighttime, when the sun went down. That was a time that a phenomenon called skip would be most prevalent. And as I went around the dial, I would come upon this gentleman who claimed to be from the high desert. His name was Art Bell, and it was very interesting. He dealt with stuff that was edgy, dealt with stuff that was unbelievable. He taxed the imagination. My imagination went round and round with him as he told the stories, and he and his guests told their stories. And it was like, wow, you know. I couldn't hear him every day for him being so far away. Years later, I found out where he was at was Arizona. It's a long way from Buffalo, New York. Skip was prevalent more often than not, but I would be listening to him maybe 3 days a week, sometimes 2. The conditions had to be just right for me to pick him up. Even with that, one of the days I always had trouble hearing him on one day a week. So it was like 2 or 3 days. The signal was clear enough that I could hear. Well, he was on the radio a long time too. From the time I was 8 years old till the time I was 18, 20, 25. when Rush came along. And then when Rush came along, it was like I was a cow at a new gate. I didn't know what to think. This man talk about politics, and he's making sense. And it's like, never before did I have a real interest in politics because all I ever heard was the one side. Now I came to find out later why that was. When I was old, the FCC made a rule called the Fairness Doctrine. Now, what the Fairness Doctrine purported to do was to mandate that both sides be heard from. What it actually did was censored talk that the politicians didn't like. While the Republicans were clamoring, trying to get their word out, the Democrats were sitting back going, okay, well, we're not going to argue with them. We're not going to dispute them. We're not going to do anything like that. Because if we do, then they have the right to be on the air, and we'll have to get on there too. But if we don't do anything about it, they can't get on the air because they don't have an opposing viewpoint. And that's how they got around it, and that's how they silenced everybody. Now, the Democrats, again, are trying to put forward a form of the Fairness Doctrine. Be not deceived, there's nothing fair about it. It's more Democrats play games, and they can manipulate it to where it's actually censorship. One thing you need to realize about the Democrats, they sit there and they say, we're going to do this. And by the time they get done with it, they have a law that does the total opposite. That's why that's why I don't trust Democrats. They are known liars and cheats, just like Joe Biden, just like Nancy Pelosi, just like Mr. Schumer. And I dare say, should I put Mitch McConnell in with that? Although he's a Republican, but still, shouldn't trust him. Can't trust him anymore. He done gone rogue, and I don't think he's coming back. So anyway, as I listened to Art Bell, it was wonderful, and I did that through the latter part of my childhood. Kind of grew up with him, and he sparked my imagination. He inspired me to pursue my interest into science fiction. Isaac Asimov, Gene Roddenberry, and like that. Oh, every night it was on. I could be found watching Star Trek just like everybody else. And the thing is, I would imagine what it'd be like to have aliens land in my backyard. How would I get a hold of Art Bell to tell him? And then that night, the answer came. He recited his telephone number. I was hooked. I called him pretty regular, every couple of months. He got to know me. I got to know him. And then Rush came along, broadened my horizons, got me more interested in more things, along with my dad's encouragement. With my dad's encouragement, I got involved in working for candidates in politics. Wasn't really interested in running for office, but it was fun to help out. And as I learned from Rush more about the Constitution, and more about the Declaration of Independence, and more about the history, I've always been a history buff, but I learned more about the history of the United States from Rush Limbaugh than I did in 12 years of school. The thing is there's a lot of wisdom that came from Rush Limbaugh, and he taught me a lot. I consider him one of my mentors, and I know his influence is going to be felt probably the rest of my life at least. I hope it goes beyond that. We do have his archives. Catherine's making sure that they're being kept safe and that they're available to people. All I have to do is go on there and get 24/7 Rush, and they can get in the archives anytime they want. So we do have his wisdom. He did leave us a wonderful legacy, a vast library of his wisdom. And that's not to say he didn't learn along the way. Sure he did. Because if you take some of his early tapes, some of his later tapes, you see where maybe he was better informed. Maybe he did change his position on one or two things, but he's always been for liberty. Rush Limbaugh's always been for the liberty of the American people. He will surely be missed. Now, as we go into a new era, post Rush Limbaugh, I know conservative talk radio will survive. I'm finding more and more patriots that have been taken to the airwaves. They're out here. And there's enough of us out here that there is no way that they can silence us all. Now, as it is right now, they're doing a half-hearted attempt. I myself, I just got dinged by YouTube. I did the election post-mortem a couple of weeks ago, and they flagged it and deleted it as being fake news, even though I even put forward the evidence. And I played clips on my video of the evidence. It's there. It's yeah, just like the Germans denied the Holocaust, the Democrats are going to deny massive voter fraud. Yeah, it upsets me. But let's not think about that right now. And the thing is in my election postmortem, I didn't even accuse anything of voter fraud. I said that we were examining the specter of voter fraud. Never did make a judgment whether or not it existed. But I put forward the evidence that the evidence that convinced me that it does. But what we do about it now is we strengthen the laws. We make sure that we have good, strong laws in place to keep it from happening again. That we get rid of the bums that let us get in this place. What's worse happen? We put new bums in there, then we'll have to vote them out too. But let's get some fresh blood in there in the Congress at least. Some that got a backbone that will sit there and say, hey, these votes were certified fraudulently. And then vote not to affirm the votes. That was what Congress's job was supposed to be that they fell down on. Let's get appointed secretaries of state and county clerks that not only know how to do the job, but have the courage and the wherewithal to enforce the laws. And let's have a learned constituency, citizens learned on what's supposed to be so that they know what to report and when. That's how we fix it. We don't just attack one place. We try to solve it all. We got time. We got a year and 3/4 to get ready. For those of you that are reaching out to your elected officials to try to get some of this done, thank you. Keep up the good work. Even if they haven't responded to you yet, keep on them. Call them every week. Sooner or later, they're going to have to get back to you. And if they don't, make sure you vote them out. Make sure you get up there and let your neighbors, friends and neighbors know that they don't deserve your vote because they don't respond to their constituents. Let all the bums in there that don't care about us and get them out of there. We may vote other bums in there, but when they show themselves, we'll deal with them too. We'll just try to be as wise as we can with it. And that's another thing that Rush taught us. We need to make these changes. Because if we don't make these changes, we're just going to keep spinning in the same mess. We're going to be like the pig rolling in the mud. You don't like the smell of the mud, you got to go find some new mud. That means getting into a new yard. Well, we can't get in a new yard, so we got to change this yard. So let's make it happen. Let's let it happen. I've gotten some news that I've been troubled with. A little confused at some things. Checking things out. There are things that I'm told that are so, and I don't want them to be so. But I don't know that it's so or not. We'll deal with those in future episodes, though. Ladies and gentlemen, this went a lot quicker than I thought it would. I thought I'd be able to think up some good stories. If Rush were here, he'd have stories. I don't know why I don't. But I do appreciate all of you, all of you that view me every week, from week to week. Please support the Society for Liberty and Prosperity at societylp.a.net. Donate to society, and if you want, you can earmark it to Podcast for Liberty, and it'll be spent here on the podcast. If you want to advertise on Podcast for Liberty, all you have to do is email one of us. There are plenty of email links on there too. Just make your needs known. You want to join the society? There is a join page. Fill it out. We'll get the ball rolling with you. And one more society news. The New Jersey group Liberty and Prosperity and the Society for Liberty and Prosperity in Kentucky are joining forces on issues of mutual benefit. Seth Grossman has joined the Society for Liberty and Prosperity, and I have joined Liberty and Prosperity. And we're going to work together on election integrity and free speech issues at the federal level. I'm so proud that we've been able to make this agreement. And now the both of us are working with the aid of 2 states. We do have a few chapters available in Nova. You don't have to live in Kentucky, you don't have to live in New Jersey to join. If you live in Iowa, you can start your own chapter. Well, I'll show you how. Show you what you need to do. We'll take it one step at a time, and I'll help you develop. And then we'll add your voice to ours as we tackle the issues of election integrity and free speech. All that's on top of we're teaching the people. And where I'm at on that is I'm trying to get together a committee. I want 4 or 5 educators, elementary education. I want one that's pre-K. I want one that's K through 5. I want one that's 5 through 8. I want one that's 9 through 12. And I want one that's college level. And what we're going to do is we're going to develop a curriculum based upon President Trump's 1776 Commission report. And we're going to take that and develop, if we have to, an after school program. I would love to be able to include it in the daily curriculum. But if we need to, we can do it as an after school program. I remember when I was a kid, we had this thing called Scouting, Boy Scouts of America. Once a week, we'd all get together and learn skills, learn civics, learn love for the country, learn what it takes to be a patriot. Become a patriot. Join the Society for Liberty and Prosperity. Find out what a patriot's all about. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't have a whole lot to say today, so we're going to cut this short. Take care of each other. Look out for each other. Let's let freedom ring. Until next week, this is Daniel Essick, and this is Podcast for Liberty.